Episode 7, Cyrus. After Cyrus, Death, Myth, and Iranian Identity. Part 1. When a king becomes memory. Every empire begins in history, but not every founder remains only historical. Some rulers live in dates, battles, inscriptions, and political events. Others move beyond them. They become memory. They become symbols. They become figures through which later generations try to understand themselves. Cyrus became one of those figures. By the end of his life, he had changed the structure of the ancient world. He had moved Persian power from a regional force into the center of a vast imperial order. He had changed the balance between Media, Lydia, Babylon, and the eastern lands. He had entered Babylon not only as a conqueror, but as a ruler whose power could be understood through restoration, legitimacy, and order. But the story of Cyrus did not end with the empire he built. In many ways, it began again after him, because after a great ruler dies, history does something strange. It does not simply preserve what happened. It selects, reshapes, and remembers. It turns actions into meanings. It turns political events into stories. And sometimes it turns a king into a mirror. For the people who came after him, Cyrus was not only a man of the past. He became a way to think about power, a way to think about justice, a way to think about Iran. This is why the final part of his story is not only about death, it is about transformation. The historical Cyrus had lived in a world of kingdoms, armies, cities, rituals, and political choices. But the remembered Cyrus entered a different world, the world of myth, identity, and sacred imagination. This remembered Cyrus was not always identical to the historical Cyrus. No memory ever is. But memory has its own truth. It shows what people needed a figure to mean. It shows what later generations saw in him, hoped through him, and used him to explain. That is why Cyrus became more than the founder of an empire. He became a figure through whom people could imagine a different kind of kingship, a king who conquered, but was remembered for allowing life to continue, a ruler who held many peoples together, but did not require every people to become the same, a founder whose empire became history, but whose image became memory. Part 2. Cyrus in the World of Myth. When a historical figure becomes powerful enough in memory, myth begins to gather around him. This does not mean that history disappears. It means that history enters imagination. Cyrus was remembered through different languages of meaning. In Babylon, his rule could be understood through the language of restoration. In Jewish memory, he could appear as a chosen ruler who made return possible. In Iranian memory, he could be connected to the idea of righteous kingship, world order, and the hope for renewal. This movement from history into sacred and mythic memory is essential. Because ancient societies did not separate politics from cosmic order in the way modern people often do. A great king was not only a manager of land, he could be imagined as someone who restored balance, defeated disorder, and reopened the path toward justice. This is why figures like Cyrus could become larger than the events of their lives. His image could be connected to the idea of the savior, the restorer, the king who appears when the world needs order again. In Iranian imagination, this kind of expectation had deep roots. The world was not only a place of political struggle, it was a stage where order and disorder, truth and falsehood, justice and chaos were always in tension. Inside such a worldview, a ruler like Cyrus could become more than a founder. He could become a sign that power might serve order, a sign that kingship might have a moral meaning, a sign that empire, at least in imagination, could be something other than pure domination. Later traditions would interpret Cyrus in different ways. Some would see him through sacred language. Some would connect him with ancient expectations of restoration. Some would place him inside wider stories about just kings and world rulers. These interpretations are not all the same, they do not always agree. But together they show one thing clearly. Cyrus was remembered as a ruler whose meaning exceeded ordinary conquest. Many kings were feared, many kings were praised, but fewer kings became symbols through which different peoples could speak about justice, return, order, and legitimate power. This is the world of myth around Cyrus, not myth as falsehood, but myth as memory shaped by meaning. Part 3. Cyrus and Iranian Identity. For Iranian identity, Cyrus became especially important, not only because he founded a great empire, but because that empire created a political frame in which the idea of Iran could begin to take historical shape. Before Cyrus, there were peoples, lands, languages, cultures, and older traditions across the Iranian world. But under Cyrus, these forces entered a new kind of political unity. A vast world was organized around a center of Iranian power. This is why Cyrus stands at a turning point. He is not only remembered as the first great Achaemenid king, he is remembered as the figure through whom Iranian power became world power. Through him, Persia was no longer only one regional identity among others. It became the center of an imperial system that connected older civilizations, distant lands, and diverse peoples. This mattered for later memory, because nations and identities do not remember the past only as a list of facts. They remember origins. They remember founders. They remember moments when something began to take form. For Iran, Cyrus became one of those beginnings. His memory could carry many meanings at once: political foundation, moral kingship, respect for difference, world empire, ancient dignity, continuity across time. This does not mean that every later age understood Cyrus in the same way. Far from it. Every period reshaped him according to its own questions. Some remembered him as a conqueror, some as a liberator, some as a just king, some as the founder of Iranian political identity, some as a symbol of an ancient world that still spoke to the present. But this flexibility is exactly why his image endured. A small historical figure cannot carry so many meanings. Cyrus could. His image became a place where history and identity met. For Iranians, he could represent not only what once happened, but what Iran could imagine about itself. A civilization with deep roots, a political memory older than many empires, and an idea of kingship tied not only to force, but to order. This is why Cyrus remains powerful, not because the past is simple, but because the past is still alive in the questions people ask about themselves. Part 4. The meaning of Cyrus. So what remains of Cyrus? A tomb, a name, an empire, a memory, and a question. What kind of power deserves to be remembered? Cyrus lived in a violent world. He was a king, a conqueror, and a ruler of empire. His world was not modern, and his rule cannot be turned into a simple story of modern freedom or equality. But within the world he inhabited, something about his political imagination stood apart. He understood that power could be stronger when it did not erase everything before it. He understood that conquest could become order. He understood that difference could be governed without always being destroyed. He understood that older worlds could be absorbed into a wider structure, not only broken apart. This is why his memory survived across cultures. For Babylon, he could be connected to restoration, for Jewish tradition, to return, for Iranian memory, to kingship, order, and identity, for later generations, to the idea of a ruler whose greatness came not only from what he conquered, but from what he allowed to continue. This does not make Cyrus simple, it makes him important. Because the most powerful historical figures are rarely simple. They stand between fact and memory, between action and interpretation, between what they did and what later generations needed them to mean. Cyrus belongs to that space. He began as a ruler of Persia. He became the founder of an empire. Then he became a figure of memory. And finally, he became a question that still returns. Can power create order without destroying meaning? Can empire hold difference without erasing identity? Can a ruler be remembered not only for victory, but for continuity? The story of Cyrus does not answer these questions once and for all, but it gives them a beginning. And that beginning changed the ancient world. From Anshan to Media, from Lydia to Babylon, From conquest to legitimacy, from law to myth, the life of Cyrus became more than a sequence of victories. It became one of the founding stories of Iranian civilization. And in that story, Cyrus remains what memory made of him. Not only a king, not only a conqueror, but a figure through whom history, empire, and identity came together.